We've seen a lot of change in the real estate market, especially in the last couple months after interest rates have literally doubled in a very short period of time. Now, this precedes a period where we've seen pure escalation of real estate values for some time now, and we've seen record highs in real estate sales, but things have changed, and they've changed quite a bit, and they've changed rather quickly. So where are you right now, or where are we if we're looking at our real estate equity? If you own property and you're concerned, what about my real estate equity, especially if property values are at a point where they're in a free fall or at least coming down as the market adjusts? Well, first off, let me introduce myself. My name is Troy Funk, and that's Funk, F-U-N-K, Fun-K, and I have been in the real estate business going on 4 decades now, and I've seen a lot of change to the real estate business, and I want to talk about equity, and I want to talk about how to preserve your equity and how to get as much equity out of your property, especially in a changing market. Now, first off, please hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and let me share my thoughts on how you can preserve your equity in this market as we move forward. Well, the first question is, should you sell your property? Is now a good time to sell? Well, you may not have a choice, right? Especially if you are facing foreclosure or you're just concerned that I don't have a lot of equity, and if my equity becomes negative quickly, then I'm in a problematic situation. The values are starting to fall. It's a good time to sell, right? And it's a good time to sell sooner than later. But this is the biggest problem when you sell, is thinking that yesterday equals today, and it doesn't. Yesterday is over with. Yesterday's comps. We're in a new market, and what that means is that when you want to sell, you need to price your property to sell, and that's obvious, right? But that doesn't mean that you sell for what your neighbor sold for. It means that you have to be ahead of the curve. You have to not chase a market, especially chase a market down, but be ahead of the curve so that when your property is on the market, it's the best thing on the market. When you look at your neighborhood and the area and you look at all the other homes for sale, that your property stands out as the best value. Because properties are still selling. Even in a market where prices are adjusting, there's still buyers looking at property. And obviously the buyer is going to look for the best possible opportunity for them. So if you're not that best possible opportunity in the neighborhood, what you're doing is you're making your neighbor's house sell. You're making their home positioned to sell by being priced not aggressively. So it's absolutely imperative, if you want to sell, that you don't chase the market down, that you're ahead of the curve, that you price it correctly and be proactive. Another tip, if you want to sell, is be careful who you sell your property to. There's a lot of people that want to buy real estate that are marketing themselves as buyers that want to buy your property. Now, be careful who you sell your property to, because that ultimately determines how much equity you're going to get from the sale of your property. And if you sell your property too low, you're giving up a lot of your equity. And you may be leaving too much on the table by not selecting the right buyer. Now, just because someone wants to buy your home doesn't mean that they're the right buyer that's going to give you the highest and best price for your house. So how do you get the buyer that's willing to pay you the highest and best value for your home? You want to expose it to the biggest market share, the world, right? You want everybody to know that your property is for sale, so you have the biggest audience eyes on your property. Now, it's kind of interesting, this new market that we're in, most sales are handled on the internet. Buyers are looking at property online, they're communicating with agents that way, and how your property is marketed on the internet is imperative, because the way it's marketed on the internet lets the whole world see your property. So you want this to go live. You want your property to go live, go big. You want the world audience, all eyes on your property, to sell your property. Now, what that means, of course, am I biased? I'm completely biased, but I think it's absolutely imperative to hire a real estate professional to sell your property. Yes, that 6% commission or whatever the commission is may seem like a lot of money, but it's a cost of doing business. And that cost of doing business can more than make itself up if you select the right agent and you get the right buyer to buy your property. Without paying that fee, selecting one buyer to buy your property limits your option on what they're willing to pay for your property. It doesn't give you the full gamut of what's possible in trying to sell your house for the highest possible price. So what if your home is in foreclosure? Well, this is a different situation, because if your property is in foreclosure, you need to sell, because obviously that's your equity, and the longer you wait, the less chance you have to sell it at a point where you're going to get your equity out. And once it goes below what you owe, you're now upside down on that property, which means you owe more on the property than what it's worth. And the only way to really get out of that situation is typically a short sale. Now, I have been specialized in helping owners in distress with foreclosures, and I've handled that for most of my career. And as such, I've created a separate website to help owners that are in distress with all their options to foreclosure. But ideally, if you have equity in your property, you want to get that equity out as soon as possible. And if by chance the market continues to fall and you go negative, you want to make sure that your agent is skilled enough to be able to stop a sale, stop a foreclosure sale, has experience with communicating with banks, and has experience in handling a short sale so you can get out of that property. So that's one aspect, that if you're in foreclosure, time is not your friend. This is a situation where you need to be on the market sooner than later, and you absolutely need to select a real estate broker that has experience with foreclosures, so they have the ability to stop a foreclosure sale if that is pending, and also have the ability to negotiate a short sale if that's also imminent in your situation. So what's another tip to capitalize and get the most value out of the sale of your property? Do that. There are situations where you can spend a nickel and make $1 in repairs. And one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to spend $1 to make $1. There's some repairs that are cost effective, that make you money, and some repairs that just trade dollars. So it's imperative that when you're communicating with your professional, ask that question. That's a key question, is what can I do? Is it cost effective for me to do some repairs to sell the property? Now, probably the cheapest thing that you can do, the least expensive thing to capitalize and get the most value out of your property, is to clean it up. Now, it's kind of difficult, because when we live in our home, that's our castle. That's where it's beautiful to us, but in the eyes of a buyer, they see somebody else's home. And it's very important that you take yourself out of your home and make it neutralized so a buyer can see that as their possible home. So what are some of the quick ways to do that? Well, you're going to move. You're going to sell your house. So if you're selling, start packing now. All those little things that you treasure and that are around the house, the pictures and all the knickknacks and all the things that you really find special, they're special to you, but they may not be special to a buyer. They're not their family, it's not their taste, and they want to feel like they can move into that space. So I strongly suggest that if you're selling your house, start packing now. Put all the stuff away. Make your house look as big as possible, especially when the photos are being taken on your property, and that house could look big and look spacious and look like it's somebody else's house. One of the cheapest things you can do, clean your house up, start packing, get ready to move, make your house as clean, as bright, and big as possible. Another key aspect here is to be flexible. The market is changing. Again, you want to be ahead of the curve, and you want to be creative in ways that help attract a buyer and things that may work. Now, that's going to be different in different markets. Now, so there's ways that you can help a buyer out if they're getting financing. You could, as a seller, you can contribute some closing cost and buy their interest rate down so they can qualify for your house. So be flexible in adjustments and corrections to help that buyer bridge the gap between affordability and your house. A good way of that is paying their closing costs, be flexible on closing times, and just be more attentive to what is going to attract the buyer to buy your property. And obviously make it easy to show. Make the house as easy to show as possible. Ideally, it's good to have a lockbox system where the buyer can show. Other agents can see your property at short notice. A home that's difficult to show is difficult to sell. Don't be that home on the market that's difficult to show. So in closing, if you're trying to get the equity out of your house, act timely. The market is changing quickly. Time is not necessarily your friend, and there are some things you absolutely need to consider. Number one, think about the condition of your property. Make sure that it's the best that it can be. Doesn't mean that you necessarily have to spend money, but don't trade money. Don't spend a dollar to make a dollar. Look at opportunities that you can spend a little bit to make a lot if you have the time. If you don't, sell the house as is, but understand the price has to be adjusted to reflect an as-is sale. Also, if you're facing foreclosure, time's not your friend. You need a broker that handles foreclosure properties so they can stop a foreclosure if that becomes apparent during the process of selling your house, and they have the ability to negotiate a short sale if that's the case. Be flexible, work with a buyer on opportunities that help them buy your property, buy their interest rates down, give them closing costs, just offer a home warranty, things that are creative that can help a buyer buy your property. And timing is everything in trying to sell your home. You want to be ahead of the curve. You don't want your home to be the house that sells all the other homes in the neighborhood. You want to be the best thing on the market, price, condition, and opportunities. So I hope this has been helpful to you. If so, please hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and I hope to see you on my next video.